Coming up next on America's Hope, what we're handing down to our children to create a civil society. And we'll discuss prosperity in America. America's Hope starts now.
This is America's Hope from our global headquarters in New York City. Here's Kelly Wright.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kelly Wright. Welcome to a new edition of America's Hope, and I do hope that you're safe and well, taking care of yourself and your family because you matter. You know what? Families matter. And we're going to discuss that tonight. Veteran author Chris Maxwell stops by to talk about what are we handing down to the next generation. And then we'll talk about Prosperity 101, what it's like to build families up, to be a pro family, helping our family prosper and grow. We'll talk to Linda J. Hansen about that. Let's get started. Welcome back to America's Hope. I'm delighted to bring on our next guest. His name is Chris Maxwell. He is a veteran author, and he has a book that I think you're going to want to hear, America. It's called Things We've Handed Down. Chris, welcome to America's Hope. Good of you to join us this hour and talk to us about this new book, because I understand it's been influenced by your life and what other people have handed down to you.
Yeah, well, Kelly, thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's great to connect with you again. And yeah, we think about this is a world of division and hate, so often controlled by our deep hurt. And I'm like, what can I do to kind of put a peace in the hearts of people who are overwhelmed, overstressed, overworked, unsure? And what I do is like I speak and I pastor and I write and I just love words and stories. And I'm thinking, all right, this is my 12th book. If this is the last book, I mean, I hope it isn't, Kelly. I hope I have other books, but I wanted to write it with that mindset. If this is the last book I write, what would I want to say to others? And then I realized I need to remember what has been handed down to me. Let go of the negative things that have been handed down to me, but take those positive things that have been handed down to me and then share those, pass those on to others. So that's the mindset. The mindset as I wrote the book, and I did it by thinking about books that have impacted my life. And it was so hard to pick 12. I mean, how do you pick 12 chapters when you're like you have so many books that you're
Yeah,
in love with,
yeah.
books that have impacted you? But that itself was therapeutic. Going back and rereading the books that changed my life and then writing chapters about 12 of those books. And wow, it was impacting my life as I was hoping to write in a way that it would impact the lives of others.
So, in your book, how do you help lead people to
Mhm.
a place of healing and
Yeah.
wholeness?
Well, I wanted to start, sometimes we try to start with a joke or a giggle or a smile, and I'm like, no, let's start with reality. Let's begin with the pain. So the book that is the first chapter of Things We've Handed Down is the book by Philip Yancey, Disappointment with God. I'm like, let's begin with the disappointment. And so I talk about his book and I tell stories. Kelly, I was writing this after dealing with five suicides of people that I was close to. Some I did the funeral services for them. I mean, what do you say? How do you deal with that? And others that I just knew, and I'm battling that, and then disappointments and hurt, and then past disappointments in my life and the lives of others. And right here in my office, this is where I spend time with college students, and I think about the pain that they bring to this room. So let's talk about it. I wanted to write about disappointment with God. And so I was emailing Philip Yancey and talking, okay, this is the direction I'm taking my chapter. And he loved the angle that I took because this is the direction. The best way for us to deal with disappointment with God, even if we're maybe blaming God for things, the best way to deal with disappointment is not distancing ourselves from God. It is facing disappointment with God. And not just a line that's a cliche or a takeaway line. That is a reality. The best way, and for me personally, how have I dealt with my disappointments in life? The death, the grief, the disabilities, living life with epilepsy. And I mean, my story is all that I've gone through. How do I do it? I cannot do it alone. So instead of blaming God, running from God, becoming bitter and angry. Let's welcome God into the story and let God be with us in the middle of our disappointments.
How do people reach out across the aisle, so to speak, that we find a consensus of hope at a time that America needs it most?
Yeah, I think it's important how we treat people and realize that that person, if my belief system is true, Kelly, then those people who disagree with me on a political view or a stand that I might take, they are also made in the image of God. I cannot let their political view keep me from being the person of love toward them. And I can listen to them. Don't we need that? Don't we need to
Mhm.
listen to the stories of one another? Why is the volume so noisy right now? Why is the volume so loud on social media? It's because people are hurt and disappointed, and they need to be heard. And I believe that disappointment, if dealt with correctly, can move us toward a place of healing. So I do that kind of in chapters 2 and 3. I go back to books that two more books that impacted my life. Wounds are where light enters. Walter Wangerin wrote that book, and I loved it. And then in chapter 3, The Wounded Healer. So instead of just fussing all the time, let's visit the wounds. Why?
Yeah.
Not just the what or the who, but why? Why are we so bitter? What has happened to us in our lives that cause us to be hurt? And if I'm willing to listen to others and take time to hear their story, then maybe the wounds are really where light enters, not just
Mhm.
bitterness and darkness and division. No, light can enter there. And then chapter 3, the wounded healer. Jesus is the example. It was like nobody got it. Nobody got his story. Kelly, it was like nobody could get his story. The disciples that he hung out with all the time, eating with them, fishing with them, seeing miracles done. At the end, they were like, what? Where's this going? They wanted a political victory, but Jesus wanted to bring the kingdom of love, the kingdom of acceptance, and the kingdom of forgiveness. That's another chapter title based on a book: Love, Acceptance, and Forgiveness. What if those three words were the key phrases of our culture? Wouldn't that be nice?
That's good, Chris. Look, I want to take a break. When we come back on the other side of this break, I want to talk about the fact that you talked about that people matter, and they matter because of the wounded healer, Jesus. And since this is the reason for the season of Christmas, we'll come back and talk more about the wounded healer and the things that he's handed down
Yeah.
to lift people up. Talking to Chris Maxwell, back with more in just a moment. Welcome back to America's Hope. I'm talking to Chris Maxwell. He is a veteran author. He's written some 12 books, and the latest book is Things We've Handed Down. And I should also point out, we heard it in the previous segment with Chris that he is a college pastor. Uh, Let me start right there because in that role as a college pastor, what are you seeing in students today? What kind of concerns are they bringing to you? Because Generation Z is performance driven,
Yeah.
but they're also kind of isolated sometimes or feel alienated. So,
Yeah.
um, what kind of unique perspectives do they bring to the table, and how do you help them?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you for asking that. We often just notice the things they are doing or not doing instead of the people they are inside of that. And and I sit with them right here in my office and I listen to their stories. They've been affected in a variety of ways during that COVID season and masks on. I have to train some college students how to lift their head up and make eye contact and look straight ahead instead of just staring down at a device. Uh, I have to train them about that. But the reason it's many reasons, but one main reason is their life is bombarded with disappointment. They
Mhm.
do not have like secure, stable land to stand on. Everything just seems like it's unstable, insecure. And who do they trust? Do they trust the preacher? Mm-mm. Do they
Mhm.
trust the parents? Kelly, right here in this office, there's so many times I'm counseling young people who are the strongest ones in their families. Think of them coming from addictive homes and addictive behavior environments. And chapter one in the book, I include a variety of statistics that are like frightening. They're just like, okay, how can we even survive this? Because people are choosing um, a variety of techniques for their method of avoidance. Instead of facing disappointments, they're going to choose the devices, the screens, the drugs, self harm. We need to talk about that self harm. They're going to choose the food or avoid the food altogether. And in the middle of that, they are desperate for someone to sit beside them and help them face their disappointment.
Wow. So if that stands to reason, then why so many of them are crying out for help and
Yeah.
hope at the same time.
Yeah.
And those who find it, what I love about the young people of America, the Generation Z, and those to follow, is that they really show you how much they care. And they
Yeah.
don't really want established thoughts and they certainly don't want religion, but they do want relationship.
Yeah.
um, your book, how does it deliver them to that relationship with the wounded healer that you've identified as being Jesus Christ?
Well, one part of it is just sort of the structure and the style that I wrote this. It's different from my other books because I wrote each chapter as a letter, starting with these two words, dear friend.
Mm,
Isn't that what we
yeah,
need? It's like instead of me standing up, grabbing a mic, having all the high tech world, instead of this high tech, they needed a high touch. And they need a face and a voice that will
yeah.
be maybe speaking less and showing less, but ears that will listen to them. And so I just start each chapter, dear friend. And then there are times that I apologize for things that others have done to them and toward them. We bring apologies into the stories and we bring story after story of disappointment, of pain. And it's like, yeah, this is good. And then I throw in a little Chris humor at times of being at a conference and it's the last night of the event and I'm going to my room and I'm packed and I'm ready to go. Couldn't get in the door. The door was locked. I was like, I mean, I just tell stories like that, and there's a story behind that story, and tell a story about, okay, at this convention, I have a major life decision to make. I like both of the desserts. Which one am I going to eat? Well, I choose both. So we needed some laughter in this. We needed some humor, but also some tears.
Yeah.
We needed to include some tears because I mean, if somebody starts crying when you're talking to them, what do they say after as they begin crying? They say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." I'm like, no, your body needs to let it out. Let's cry. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could sit together, cry together, and love through words spoken, words heard, and bring voices of encouragement? That's what I want us to hand down. And I also invite these students to a place that many of us don't go. One chapter in the book is based on a book that really impacted my life, Pilgrim at Tinker Creek. And I talk about how most people don't live near where Annie Dillard lived as she wrote the book, Pilgrim at Tinker Creek, but we need to find our Tinker Creek. Mine is a waterfalls that I love to go to and visit. Where can we go outside, away from our desk, away from the worry? That's not avoidance. It is realizing our Creator has created this wonderful world, and it's not always on the screen or in the news clip. It's right beside us as the sun rises, as the sun sets, as the world turns, as the waves wash ashore. We need to remember, hey, we're just pilgrims here. We are traveling through. We're not to seek to be in control or live trying to control those that think they're in control, but just submit to the Father, finding His love, His acceptance, and His peace in the middle of the chaos.
Talk
Right.
to us about what you've been through battling epilepsy. I remember
Yeah.
my mother going through that as well. It is not an easy
No.
thing to go through.
Yeah, it's not. And, sometimes some of the stories are based upon past experiences where we can talk about this happened to us. It's past tense. But my life with epilepsy, with the scar tissue in my left temporal lobe, paying for medication, having limitations on what I can do. Those are present tense. It's like a part of my life now. But what has helped me so much is changing how I view this. Instead of being just like, oh no, I'm the victim, everything has gone wrong for me. Um, I can have epilepsy without epilepsy having me. It's like um, God is still my God, and He is my help in time of need. And His strength is made perfect where? Not in our success story. His strength is made perfect in our weakness. And one of the chapters in the book, I loved writing about a book that impacted my life, The Art of Being You.
Mm.
Unfortunately, we often see God as just he's the mechanic. We've got to go in for our tune up and he's going to fix us up and everything's no, he's an artist and he's continuing his artwork. What does his artwork look like? Look in the mirror. Look at
That's
the
good.
person beside you. Look on the screen. I see his face in your face, Kelly. He has created you in his image. You look like him, you sound like him, you love like him, you live like him. The art of being you. Isn't that a better way to think about it than it's like,
Yeah.
ah. And then another chapter, hope has its reasons. We do not have to push away hope because of the bad news. If we live with eternal hope, it changes kind of like the lens we look through at all the news, whether it's good or bad. Hope is that creates the climate we need to see through.
That's fantastic. And Chris, on that note, I want people to go out and get your book. Where can they get it?
Yeah, my book, Things We've Handed Down, 12 Letters I Leave for You. It's on Amazon. They can get the ebook version, the paperback, and now the audio has come out and it's my voice. So, yeah, I would love for people to get the book. We've got several people that have played with this, Kelly. It's Chris Maxwell's 12th book. Let's get 12 copies and we're going to give some to others. So they're buying it as gifts for this holiday season. And just, hey, they want to pass it down to others, things that have been passed down to them and the final chapter, it's like a long obedience in the same direction. That's where I want us to
Wow.
go in this
Wow.
in this long obedience. But I believe it
Yeah,
will help your listeners to remember, don't run the marathon alone. Have people beside you. And so
that's right.
chrismaxwell.me is my website. They can look at the videos and some of my messages there in my blog, chrismaxwell.me, and then the book is available on Amazon and on my website.
Chris, thank you for being on the program. I can't let you go without asking the final question, and that is, what is your hope for America?
Oh, I have hope because hope has its reasons, as that chapter I wrote about, and my hope is in Him. And by Him, I mean the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. He's created us in His image, and He did not give up on us. The long obedience in the same direction is when times we are weak, He will carry us where He wants us to be.
Things They've Handed Down is the book, and good to see you, my friend.
Very good to
And
see you.
have a Merry Christmas
Blessings to you, Kelly. Thank you.
because you matter.
Mhm.
We're back with more in just a moment. Well, welcome back to America's Hope. I'm joined now by Linda J. Hansen, and she is the founder and president of Prosperity 101. And Linda, you've embarked on something that many people will take a liking to, and of course, critics may have some dismay. But you were talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, but you're looking at it from a standpoint of from woke to what? So, what's next in terms of people really looking at DEI and saying, it isn't working the way we thought it would work? How are you developing the landscape for people moving to the next frontier of Americans learning how to really get along across racial lines, political lines, and ideological lines to work together?
Well, thank you so much first for having me. It's just an honor to be on your show, but and thank you for that question because we do need to go from woke to what? I think we need to go from woke to awake. We need to go from woke to awake, and I just applaud Robbie and Landon Starbuck, who are just doing such a fantastic job helping to expose and really helped to change the landscape of the DEI and all of these liberal woke ideologies that have been permeating American corporate culture and obviously our educational system too. But people don't want to be judged by the color of their skin or their gender or things. I mean, that is a small minority that calls out for that. And the American business landscape, has been hurt by these woke ideologies. And I have been saying for a long time that employers are really a last frontier for protecting and preserving freedom for America. Because as we look at how American students are educated. They come through preschool, grade school, high school, college, and what have they been taught, especially in the last couple generations, especially they have not been taught the basic American civics. They've not been taught basic economics. They have not been taught basic citizenship. And I say, let's bring that back because we have millions, probably 60 to 70 million people in privately held or family owned businesses and more in publicly held, obviously, businesses around the country that, have never learned these basic things about America and why we can even have opportunity or human flourishing and freedom, which I say is prosperity. So we need to replace the woke with this common knowledge of basic American citizenship understanding and decide on focusing on what unites us and how these policies affect paychecks.
These companies, there are quite a few of them. For example, what comes to mind is the big store that many people flock to, and that's Walmart. What's happened there within their culture to help them change or do an about face?
Like I mentioned, Robbie Starbuck and his wife Landon, they have just continued to expose companies that have, these woke policies in their workplace. And I applaud all the whistleblowers or all the people who brought forth what some of the internal communications have been through, these companies like Walmart, Tractor Supply, others that, they forget who their customers are. Do customers really want these companies to be funding drag shows for 3-year-olds? Probably not. I mean, and so we need to, that's just one idea of these companies being awake. But when you think about DEI and judging on race and gender, all these things, people just want to have a neutral company, just do business, provide goods and services. And I would say that many of these companies, like when Robbie started putting pressure on Tractor Supply or John Deere or Harley Davidson was a big one. And we think to early things, Bud Light, we can see go woke, go broke, right? And so they have a bottom line to consider, but I hope that they would consider beyond that and stop caving to this cultural chaos and the cancel culture and say, let's get back to what made America great. And so we need to focus on that. What made America great? What makes companies prosper? What makes it easy for business owners to provide jobs and increase wages and benefits? What kind of policies do we need for that? And if you're a citizen, how do you protect that for yourself? That's what's important.
And based on what you're talking about right now, and having your company Prosperity 101, I love that, by the way, the title. How are you helping people prosper and understand the basic information that we need and the basic knowledge that we need to develop the kind of nation that is doing better service for its citizens, and thereby being recognized around the world as this economic engine, and this superpower that has greatness not only for in terms of how our adversaries look at us and even our allies, but how we look at each other and appreciate each other as one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What I try to do is help people understand the basics, in my book, which people can get prosperity101.com, but in my book, and then I have, like I mentioned, the online course that I can license into workplaces. We help people understand the foundations of prosperity. First, I want them to understand that prosperity isn't money. It is human flourishing and freedom. And then why do we have it in America? We have it because we have these beautiful Judeo-Christian principles. We have our Constitution. We have our Declaration of Independence. We have this system of government that was divinely inspired, that allows for this opportunity. So, and we have people who've been all through their educational time, and they're in the workplace now, 20, 30, 40 years old. They've never been exposed to this. So let's reintroduce them, give them that fifth grade education that they never got, that says these are our founding documents, and this is why this Bill of Rights is important to you. And make sure you're voting for a person who will protect your rights. First, they need to know what those rights are. Then they need to know how to vote for that person, but we need to be able to say, this is what made America great. And this is why you have opportunity. This is why people want to come here. Then the policies of prosperity. And, my course is called Break Room Economics. And I always let people know I'm not an economist. I know enough about economics to be dangerous, not an expert. And that's why I called in my good friend Herman Cain, who I ended up working with on the presidential campaign, but and now he's gone. We miss him very much. But my good friend Herman Cain and Steve Moore, the economist, because I wanted to make sure that any policies that I talked about were, sound. But a lot of it is common sense. Like Dr. Art Laffer often says, if you tax something more, you get less of it. If you tax it less, you get more of it. And it's common sense so much. You can't outspend what you take in, and it's just common sense.
I got to ask you, this past election, how do you see the developments or the outcomes of this past election? What does it say about the American people and what we value and aspire to be?
Well, isn't it exciting that the American people rose up and said, even though they have tried the lawfare, everything, they've tried everything to eliminate the MAGA movement, right? Everything. But the American people said, oh, no, we're not standing for that. And the American people said, we don't like our money being sent overseas when we have hurting people here. We don't like disaster relief in other countries when we've got storm ravaged communities here. We don't like 325,000 missing children and an influx at our border. They have seen it, and I think it woke people up. Not in the woke sense, not woke to awake, but I mean, it awakened people, right, to what is actually happening. But my concern moving forward is that so often when we have these victories of sorts, when we kind of go back to, yes, America, red, white, and blue, and, God bless America and things, people start to go back into their complacent lifestyles. And people have told me, oh, that won't happen. People have seen how bad it can get. And I think, well, if anyone reads the Bible, they can see that the Israelites went through a parted Red Sea. They watched God part the Red Sea. They were provided with manna in the desert, and yet still they ended up crying, I want to go back to Egypt and give us a golden calf. And so, we are fickle. And if it's not, instant results, as humans, we sometimes go back into our old ways and forget about our responsibility to make sure we stand up for truth and righteousness and the values that made this country great all the time. That's our responsibility.
I'm talking to Linda J. Hansen. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll hear more from her, particularly about how she became the woman she is today. That's next on America's Hope. Welcome back to America's Hope. I'm talking to Linda J. Hansen, and she has quite a campaign going on. It's called Prosperity 101. And in our previous segment, Linda, you were talking about going from woke to being awake, and how corporations are now discovering that the DEI thing just isn't working out the way they envisioned it to be. And consequently, they're turning that around because it not only impacts their bottom dollar and their profit and revenue, it also affects their employees from all racial stripes and all diverse backgrounds. And sometimes the best thing to really help people understand their value is to show them their value and how they work and their productivity and things of that nature. That being said, you've done a lot. You've worked a lot to help America grow and become better and greater. Uh, where did it all begin for you? How'd you become the person that you are today?
Well, we can always go back to how we were raised, and I'm really so thankful for my parents. They had a strong work ethic. We had restaurants when I was in high school, so I was running restaurants before I got out of high school. And one of the things that taught me about business was one day when I came home, and my parents sat me down after I got home from school and said, "We need to talk to you. We had to empty your savings account to pay payroll." And we had several restaurants, and we had just opened a new one, and this one was still, getting off its feet. And uh, it really woke me up at that point, because so many people thought, we just had all the money in the world, we were the business owners, whatever. And here they were raiding my savings account to pay payroll, which they later paid back, and that was great. But that was a great lesson, and just that work ethic was wonderful. And then I have 6 children. I'm the mom of 6 kids, and now the mom to, or the grandmom to 6 grandbabies. And I homeschooled them all. And I could see early on, I was, as a Christian, I felt when my oldest child was born, I felt God call me to fight for freedom. He just said, you need to fight for freedom so your son can grow up free. And that started a whole journey for me. My family wasn't that political, but it started a journey of learning for me. And I got involved in conservative politics early on, Concerned Women for America, Homeschool Legal Defense Association. Michael Ferris was, I really often call him one of my mentors. I'm just so grateful for him. And so all those years, but I was a stay-home homeschool mom for many years. And then as children left the home, I began to, be able to volunteer more. I became a county chair, district chair. I mean, things just grew from there. And my awareness and my ability to go against the flow. I guess I've always been rather anti-establishment. So people always ask me, how come you haven't made more money in politics or something? And I'm like, well, I really like to put my head on the pillow and let God know that not that you can't make money in politics and be honest, but I have often chosen projects and things that fought up against establishment and, punch big government in the nose. And that's not always financially profitable, but it's great. And I feel like, and you said about today, one of my grandsons, we were talking and he said, Grammy, I know that you will never stop fighting for freedom because you love us.
Wow, that's
So,
good.
that kind of brings it
Yeah,
full circle. It's like,
yeah.
I can't ever stop fighting for freedom. And as someone who loves the Lord, my mission is to know Christ and make him known, and then to promote liberty and freedom throughout the land. So, however that looks like, and the Lord has had me do all different things. Yes, I started Prosperity 101 because I saw a need, but I've worked with election integrity. I've worked consulting on nuclear energy. I mean, there's just so many different things that I've done that I feel so blessed to have done. But as the Lord calls, but I do feel just an absolute calling to get employers to build this movement of employers to educate employees, because I truly believe employers are a last stop. If we have these 20, 30, 40-year-olds that are in the workplace now, and they have come through the public education system, the public university system, they have learned to hate America. They have learned to protest. They've learned to hate America, or to hate our system of government, to think capitalism is bad. They're in the workplace. They're entitled, they're angry, they're not necessarily performing with a good work ethic. They don't understand the big picture. And so if employers don't educate them, who will? And
Hmm.
we could have this big victory now, and say, oh, great, we're returning back to America's roots and the values and things. But if we don't have people that are the citizens who are awake and not woke, right? then then it won't matter. I mean, 4 years from now, we'll be fighting so many of the same battles.
Yeah, you said a lot there. So let me go back and unpack some of that. You talked about there are a lot of things that I heard in what you were saying. And I think the fundamental thing that I heard was family. You're the mother of six, you have six grandchildren. And I have a habit of saying on this program and anywhere that I go that the greatness of our nation really begins in the homes of its people.
Absolutely. God's design is for the family. And, people talk about homeschooling being, a renegade type thing. It's like, actually, I look and think, actually, public school is the renegade type thing. Since when do we farm out our children to someone else to raise, their whole life? So, and those are blanket statements. I'm not criticizing anybody who has their kid. I went to public school, so I'm not criticizing anybody. So, but I'm saying that we've had the family as the basis of society, and even years past, the family did the educating, or it was a little one-room schoolhouse, or things where it was very close and family. And now, by design, families are being divided. Children are being, away from the home so much more. Many states are taking away rights of parents, in that even if, say the parent says, I don't want you to transition your gender at 8 years old. Some of these states have legislation that, they can take the child away. I mean, this is just ridiculous. We need to get back to parental authority, parental freedom, so that people can do what they feel is best for their family. Now, of course, we don't want families that are abusing children, and we don't want the fake families, like the kids being rented and brought back and forth across.
Hmm.
We don't want fake families. We want, true, strong families. But we also do that by having a strong economy and a culture in America that says we value family. And I think that we need to have in our media, in our culture, we need to let women and men know it's great to be parents. And for women who are afraid to be pregnant or something, I I can't even imagine my life without my children. And,
Yeah.
yes, your body does this thing, but it's a miracle. It's an absolute miracle. And children are such a gift from the Lord. And if we don't have children, like I think even Elon Musk is talking about this, a negative birth rate. I mean, we have to raise up children for the next generation. And this whole anti-child, like it's okay to kill them if they're inconvenient for you. It's just so wrong. It's just we need to value family and multi-generational families. One of the biggest honors of my life was taking care of my parents before they died. And now, oftentimes the elderly parents get put away in a home and they don't get seen very much, or they don't get cared for. The multi-generational family is so important to carry on those values. But the people who have wanted to destroy our nation, the globalist elites, the oligarchs, it's by design that families are being separated, and by design that there's so much division promoted by race or gender or in families and things too.
You pointed out how even Elon Musk and even the Trump administration, as you know, is talking about a pro-family agenda. uh, Establishing a pro-family agenda, what will it do for our nation, given the fact that we have adversaries like Russia and China, and as you know, China had a one-child policy, and they saw that that wasn't working out well for them, and they have now changed it to the point they're trying to encourage people there to have two children, three children. Uh, should we be, as a nation and as a government, looking at the down trends in places like China, to understand that we have to have a population, we have to be pro-family in order to remain prosperous?
Absolutely. Absolutely, we should be looking at that, and we should make it easier for people to have more children. Tax credits for families, tax credits for people. I love what President Trump was proposing about tax credits for people who are caregiving for family members. I mean, this is wonderful. You can see what's happening in China. That's awful. But now let's go a step further. Look what's happening in Hungary. President Orban in Hungary was giving tax credits, but also I think don't quote me on this, but there was some sort of incentive bonus if you had more than, so many children. Like the tax credit was better if you had more children. How refreshing, encouraging families to have more children. How refreshing, making it easier for families to add to their family and to be able to pay the bills and pay the orthodontist and, take care of school books and homework and shoes and soccer balls and all the things that families need to take care of, right? But in an economy like we have right now, underneath this administration, I mean, people are struggling. Everything is a struggle. But when we start to really open it up and let families flourish, it's that human flourishing and freedom I talk about. We let families flourish, and that's how we make a strong America. Strong families make for a strong community, make for a strong country, and a strong country makes for a stronger world.
What is your hope for America?
What is my hope for America? First thing that comes to mind is revival, spiritual revival. We need a spiritual revival in America, and I see it bubbling up. I see a new interest. I just read something yesterday that the sales of new Bibles, first time Bible purchases was up something like 22%. There is a thirst, and my hope for America is a spiritual revival. And, of course, I would love to have everyone come to know Jesus, of course, but I also know that a spiritual revival also means like it just opens up and brings freedom and a sense of love and grace and forgiveness in the nation. My hope is that we will shift from this heaviness, this divisiveness, this I don't know, judging everyone and things. We need to get back to that. And I think with a spiritual revival, that would be the most amazing thing. And then, of course, I hope we'll get back on our feet financially. We need to, what Elon and Vivek are doing to get the government efficiency better and making sure we have that more oversight. If we can get on better footing spiritually, better footing financially, we can really become that great leader of the free world that we have been. And, a free America makes for a more free world. A strong America makes for a stronger world.
Linda, I appreciate you again being on America's Hope. Linda J. Hansen, Prosperity 101. Make sure you go and find out what Prosperity 101 is about. And Linda, don't be a stranger. Come back anytime. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Welcome back to America's Hope. I'd like to thank our guests who appeared on the program, Linda J. Hansen and Chris Maxwell. Certainly, we've heard from them about what it means to hand something to the next generation, something good. Something that provides love, freedom, and peace. Oh, yes, and hope that prevails. Until next time, America, God bless.
In my America, my children are black and white, one shade of beautiful, so precious in God's sight. In my America, all lives matter. So let's stop the chatter that tears us apart. We are a family, together you and me, agreeing to disagree, but still live in harmony. The dream that gives hope to to us is as strong as it ever was. United we stand, divided we fall. That's my America. In my America, there is no left or right. We're all on common ground. Darkness gives way to light. In my America, you give more than you take. And when someone has lost their way, you lend them a hand and say, we are a family. Together, you and me, agreeing to disagree, but still live in harmony. The dream that gives hope to us is as strong as it ever was. United we stand, divided we fall. That's my America. We are brothers. I'm not my brother's killer, but I am your keeper. We are sisters. The greatness of our nation starts in the homes of its people. What's in your house? We are family. Together, you and me, agreeing to disagree, but still live in harmony. The dream that gives hope to us is as strong as it ever was. United